I did appreciate that Peter Jackson stretched out a lot. There is definitely a lot of material that you can stretch out within those movies, but I didn't need 9 hours worth of it.
These bats are bred for one purpose. For war.
Drive-By Movies here. My name is James.
My name's Blaze.
And never have I ever seen The Hobbit. And I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. And I have not seen the animated version. And that's what we're going to be talking about.
In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Many ages ago, when this ancient planet was not quite so ancient, long before man recorded his history, there was the time of Middle-earth, when man shared his days with elves, dwarves, wizards, goblins, dragons, and hobbits.
What do these dwarves want in Hobbiton?
They have come for tea, and for supper, and for you, burglar Baggins.
So 1977's The Hobbit is directed by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin. This is a Rankin and Bass production, and you might be scratching your head being like, Rankin and Bass, have I heard those names before? Have I? Yes, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and a lot of those famous old classic, I don't know if it's like claymation kind of, those claymation movies that, you know, were TV movies and played all year, not all year round, but every year, you know, Christmas time. You've definitely seen at least one of those, or you've seen a meme, I guess, of one, if I'm speaking to a younger generation. But yeah, like basically this is, you know, the story of The Hobbit. I think this was a TV movie. It's a little bit on the shorter side, but it's around 90 or 80 minutes. But it's about a homebody hobbit in Middle-earth that gets talked into joining a quest with a group of dwarves to recover their treasure from a dragon. That dragon is Smaug. But anyways, if you've seen the original, or not the original, sorry, you've seen the Peter Jackson rendition of The Hobbit, but you hadn't seen this version of The Hobbit. And I have to say, this was probably one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. So I was always kind of like, not shocked, but always like interested that like, oh, you haven't seen this version. But even now, like I mentioned this version to my wife and she was like offended that this version existed. Like I
Really?
love this. I love this version, but she's a hardcore Tolkien fan and she was like offended that this film, like the Hobbits, the way they looked, she didn't like the way Gollum looked. And for me, the Gollum in this film was always like, that's how Gollum looks. When I saw him in the Lord of the Rings film, I was always like, couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, he's just more realistic. I liked him looking like a frog, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, I would love to hear what you thought of this movie, because I'm a fan, but I kind of felt like maybe after rewatching it this time, I could understand if someone didn't like it.
No, so I really did enjoy it. There's a lot in this movie that I can see would turn people away. First and foremost, like, hearing that it's made by guys who created Christmas specials, it makes sense because I was reading up on it. Apparently this was made as a Christmas special on around Christmas time on NBC. It was released specifically for it. And no, there's nothing really Christmassy about it whatsoever, but you know, with it having a lot of musical numbers, maybe not musical numbers, but there's just a lot of, you know, singing moments. I could see why and stuff. And, you know, it's like a group of gathering together, working together. So I can see why. And seeing it, I can definitely see what you mean with Gollum. Gollum in the Hobbit look didn't bother me because as a kid I had seen the animated Lord of the Rings before the live action movie came out. I remember specifically in like 1999 or 2000 seeing the trailer for the Lord of the Rings in theaters, and it was a trailer that advertised all three movies, not just the Fellowship of the Ring. It was like saying like this will come out 2001, that'll come out 2002, that'll come out 2003. I had never heard of it and my dad got so excited, and right away I remember we went to Blockbuster like the next weekend and he rented the Lord of the Rings animated movie saying he loved it and stuff. And it was a little difficult for me to understand as a kid. There were a lot of things I liked. I liked the ring rates, and I thought Gollum was a interesting creepy creature. And that is kind of like, honestly, Peter Jackson's versions like are very much inspired by that movie. And, you know, once the Lord of the Rings movies came out, I wanted to see the animated Return of the King to see what happened in the story. And so I rented that, and that is a kind of a sequel to The Hobbit. It ignores the Lord of the Rings movie. It's weird. All three of these animated movies came out back to back to back in 3 different years, but none of them are related. It's just, well, it's really just The Hobbit and The Return of the King, but they're not really related in the sense that it jumps so many stories in between them, which is so wild to me. But, getting into this one, though, I still enjoyed it. And first and foremost, what I thought was the most interesting, coolest part was when Smaug comes in. I thought Smaug was so interesting, and just seeing the shorter version of the trilogy. I don't really remember the Hobbit movies that well. I saw all 3. I saw the first one twice in theaters, and I did enjoy that first one, but the second and third one, kind of I remember images, but they're a little bland in my head. And just seeing how quick those movies are resolved in this animated movie made me crack up and stuff. Yeah,
it is funny because it always was like, how are they going to stretch The Hobbit into 3 feature length? And we're not even talking just feature length films. Like, I think each of those films is 2 hours and 30 minutes. Or at least maybe 3 hours. I don't think one of the Peter Jackson Hobbit films was an hour and 30 minutes. Like, they had to go above and beyond it instead of just being a 90-minute film, which gives it this epic grand scale, but at the same time, like, I don't feel like The Hobbit is supposed to be as grand as they made it. So that's why this film, it just feels like a quaint adventure that Bilbo Baggins does, all in the span of 90 minutes or so, maybe even a little bit shorter than that. I just, as a kid, this movie like had everything for me, but rewatching it now, I can understand why people might not like it. Some of the animation was funny at times, like especially when there's the Battle of 5 Armies, which literally happens in probably the blink of, an eye, or maybe at max 5 minutes, but some of the animation was literally just squiggly lines attacking each other, which cracked me up. It was like ants or like fleas in like another animation, like just a bunch of dots and like scribbles. Like, that was the Battle of 5 Armies. I was literally dying at that. I was like, this is the battle, like Peter Jackson's The Battle of 5 Armies, the 3rd Hobbit film. Like, it's like a full-on movie, but it's a couple squiggly lines like bumping into other squiggly lines.
Right, yeah. I was cracking up at that, just watching that. Just like, it looked like a fight scene from like Arthur or something, or like Doug, or what was that show? Schoolhouse Rock. That's what it reminded me of. That's what I was mainly thinking of, Schoolhouse Rock. Like, just I remember just like the animation was so simplistic, and like the artwork is really cool in this movie, but just seeing how minimalist they did it. Like, I mean, that would have been a nightmare drawing like 5 different armies full of thousands of people fighting each other. Like, just the idea that they rendered all that on like After Effects or whatever they use to edit the current Hobbit movies, or the Hobbit movies that came out a few years ago, just like that sounds like a nightmare on its own. So I just love how back in the 70s, like, no, we're not doing this, we're not drawing all this and stuff.
You know what it reminded me of? It almost reminded me of Pigpen. You know how there's all that dirt following Pigpen around? Yeah, it looks like that. But a scene of that.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, I mean, I felt like this movie, it's definitely aged. It had the same vibe. Like, I know a lot of people are very, like me myself also, are very nostalgic about the X-Men animated TV show. But if you go back and rewatch it, it is very, very slow. And I felt like this movie, even though a lot happens in it, there is some times where it is like pretty slow when it comes to dialogue, or even just characters talking and trying to get to the point, even though it is like, the 3 Peter Jackson films condensed into one, essentially. Like, the original Hobbit, I think, is only around 300 pages or so. So, it is like a condensed version of that, but it sometimes does feel a little bit on the slower side. So I could see like a younger audience not really getting into it, especially because it's from 1977, and it's almost a different language at that time, like how everything moves a little bit slower than it does now.
Yeah, and I haven't read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I've read the Hobbit book in 6th grade, and it was a little difficult for me to understand, but I remember the English, and it was like very ye old and stuff. Like, it was very like, like just different style, like broken version of like English. Like, it felt like almost Shakespearean in a way and stuff. There was like a lot of interesting words that I'd never heard of and stuff. And so but while watching this, I recall like some of these are direct lines from it and stuff. So it's cool to see that because, you know, the movie versions are much more spelled out and stuff. And you kind of have to do that for general mainstream audiences, which I get. But it was just cool to see that in the animated book. Like they gave like no Fs. They were going straight for the fans and stuff. And I'm not sure whether fans or not loved this. Like I'm not sure if your family was, but I know that this is one of the like 5 movies you guys owned on VHS, as you said on previous episodes.
I don't think any of us are fans of like The Hobbit. I don't know why we had this. I think we just thought it was an animated version of Willow.
Oh, okay. Which I love. I love Willow, by the way. I don't know if that movie holds up by any means, but I loved that movie growing up. And yeah, I mean, I could have seen myself loving this movie as a kid. I don't know why I didn't rent it, because I'm pretty sure I would have loved it. And yeah, what definitely stands out the most for me is the smog moments and stuff. Like, I like that that's a moment of it slowing down, because a lot is thrown at you, even though this is a short watch. It's only like 70 minutes. But because it's so condensed, like I did appreciate that Peter Jackson stretched out a lot. There is definitely a lot of material that you can stretch out within those movies, but I didn't need 9 hours worth of it. You know, I could have did like 2-hour movies, I'd say, which would have felt fine, I'm sure. And there's other problems with those movies that we'll get into, like maybe on a different Lord of the Rings special episode where we just talk about our love for Lord of the Rings. But yeah, just like it was fun and refreshing to watch, and it ignited like a little fire in my belly that I forgot about how much I love Lord of the Rings, because now I actually do want to give the Hobbit movies a retry again, and now I want to watch the original trilogy again and stuff. And it's been a while since I've seen the extended cuts, so like maybe that's how I'll watch the Hobbit movies. But like I'm proud of that and excited with that this movie like rebuilt that and reignited it, just because like I miss these movies and Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like I can't wait for the new Amazon show, because I know it's not going to be a remake. It's going to be like, you know, deal with other characters and like a younger version of Aragorn. So I'm curious to see how that's going to turn out when that comes out.
Yeah, I think that's definitely interesting. I'm definitely going to watch that when it comes out, because I feel like everyone loves Lord of the Rings, but there are some hardcore Lord of the Rings nerds out there. I know a couple, but I think majority of people do just enjoy Lord of the Rings. Like they're like, oh, this is pretty good. But there are those diehard fans. But then when it comes to Harry Potter, there's only diehard fans of Harry Potter, I feel like.
Which I'm not. I love Harry Potter. I'm wearing this right now, but yeah, I'm still a Lord of the Rings
I even
guy.
forgot that you're literally wearing a Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, I'm still a Lord of the Rings kid, though. I liked those from the start. It took 3 movies for me to get into Harry Potter, and then when I read the books, of course, I became a fan. But Lord of the Rings, though, is still like, you know, that's my stuff right there. And yeah, there's like, I'm really excited to get back into it. Now I want to watch the animated movie also. I don't think I ever feel the need to watch Return of the King again, the animated one.
Was it not good?
But that one, I just don't I remember not being a fan of the songs in that one. It's the same animation. Gollum looks exactly the same. I think Gollum had hair in this movie, The Hobbit, though. I don't think he has Hobbit in Return of the King, though.
Or hair in Return of the King?
What's that?
You don't think he looks like a Hobbit in Return of the King?
Oh, in Return of the King, he doesn't have hair on his like head and stuff. He kind of had some like bushy like hair on him in this Hobbit movie, but like he looks exactly the same, though, more like lizard like and amphibian like also. Like, so I like, it's a cool take on Gollum. Yeah, I'm not sure how they describe him in the book. I can't recall from reading The Hobbit, but yeah.
Most definitely. And I say, like, if you haven't seen this movie, it's definitely worth a watch, because you can get all those Peter Jackson movies in one with some weird 70s animation and that classic Rankin and Bass style. So I'd say definitely go check it out. If you guys would like to support the show, there is always an Amazon affiliate link in the description box below that you can support us there.
Yeah, after doing that, come back here, leave a comment letting us know what you thought about the movie, and smash that like button. That's a great way to help us out too. And if you're new to our videos, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to get all our latest updates.
And if you haven't followed us already on all of our social medias, we're available on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. So go into the description box below and find those links. Anyways, guys, that's it for Never Have I Ever. Tune in next week for a brand new video.